ever thought that the one who once gazed at you with love, promising to protect you forever, could also be the one to put a full stop to your life? It was a quiet summer night in the UK. A woman returned home after a small gathering with her colleagues. She smiled, opened the door, walked up to her room, unaware that death was already waiting inside, wearing a familiar mask, her ex-husband. And then, at exactly 3:30 a.m., an alarm went off, not to wake up for work, but to carry out a murder. Shortly after, a chilling call was made to emergency services. "I'm sorry for what I did, but she deserved it." Cold, emotionless, without a trace of remorse. Today's story isn't just about a murder. It's a warning about relationships that seem perfect on the outside, where love disguises itself in the form of control, jealousy, and possession. And the victim was Tamara Padi, a devoted mother, a successful entrepreneur, and a woman who fought to reclaim her freedom, but ended up paying the ultimate price with her life. Welcome to Echoes of Crime, where shocking crime stories are told. Leave your comments to let us know what you think so we can continue sharing more powerful stories. Don't forget to subscribe. Your support means everything to this channel. Now let's explore today's story. Tamara Padi, a name now associated with tragedy, but before she became the victim of a heartbreaking crime, she was the embodiment of resilience, determination, and the pursuit of a better life. Born and raised in Butterworth, a small town in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa, Tamara was the daughter of a land marked by hardship yet rich in tradition. From a young age, she showed an iron will and a deep yearning to reach beyond the borders of her hometown, to chase a life greater than the one she was born into. At the age of 26, she met Aubrey, a serviceman in the South African Navy. They fell in love, married, and in 2004 left Cape Town for the United Kingdom, carrying with them hopes for a brighter future. But Tamara didn't just come to the UK to live, she came to rise. In a foreign land where the language, culture, and lifestyle were all unfamiliar, Tamara started from nothing. She worked odd jobs, studied at night, cared for her children, and step by step, she earned a bachelor's degree in law from the University of Bolton, followed by a master's degree in law from the University of Salford. Her journey didn't end there. Together with her husband, she founded Greenleaf Care Ltd, a company providing healthcare services for the elderly. Tamara was not only a qualified legal professional, she was a successful African entrepreneur in modern-day Britain, a living symbol of strength and achievement. Her friends described her as someone who was always radiant, joyful, and full of love. She loved the beach, going on picnics with her family, and often shared photos filled with laughter alongside her two daughters, Tia and Mia.
The flower toxic water
It says tonic, not toxic.
I know.
To them, Tamara was not just a mother, she was a friend, a role model, and a guiding light. Her colleagues called her the woman who never gets tired, always energetic, always driven by a passion for life. Tamara once told a friend, "I don't just work to live. I work so that my children can be proud of their mother." And she did just that. An African woman who built a life from scratch, balancing motherhood, entrepreneurship, and relentless learning, Tamara Padi was living proof of what miracles can unfold when a woman believes in herself. But cruelly, just as her life began to blossom, when her career was flourishing, Her children were thriving, and she had finally found her footing. A darkness quietly crept in. A darkness she never expected, come from the very man who had once shared her bed for 14 years. 14 years of marriage, 2 beautiful daughters, a business they co-founded. On paper, Tamara and Aubrey had all the elements of an ideal home. But behind the closed doors of that home, a silent storm had been brewing for years. Aubrey, once gentle and attentive, slowly began revealing a terrifyingly controlling and possessive nature. Tamara confided in her closest friend that, at first, she thought it was just her husband's protective instinct. But soon that instinct twisted into something unrecognizable. He checked her phone regularly, not just texts, but emails, voicemails, everything. He made unexpected video calls, regardless of where she was, just to verify her location. A work party, a late-night class, a day out with the kids. Everything had to be accounted for. Tamara was no longer allowed to be herself. She couldn't dress how she wanted. She couldn't go anywhere without informing him first. She couldn't speak too freely with male colleagues. She, an educated, accomplished, self-respecting woman, had become a possession in the eyes of her husband. Something to control, not someone to love. The first cracks appeared in silence. She told no one, not because she was afraid, but because she believed she was strong enough to endure it. For the children, for a fleeting sense of so-called peace. But the fatigue built up. With every phone check, every suspicious glance, every threatening message when she didn't respond in time. Love had turned into chains. The same African girl who once crossed continents to chase her dreams was now being suffocated inside the very home she had built. And then, in early 2021, Tamara made a decision. She chose to leave. She moved out with her daughters, Tia and Mia, into a small house in Stalybridge. They separated peacefully. Tamara still tried to maintain civility, kept communication with Aubrey for the sake of the children. She didn't want her daughters to lose the image of their father, even though, deep down, she knew her trust had run dry. But to Aubrey, it was betrayal. To him, Tamara had no right to walk away. She wasn't allowed to step out of a marriage that, in his mind, still existed. Then came the messages, sometimes sweet, sometimes threatening. One moment it was, "I miss you, come home." The next, "Don't make me lose control." One day he demanded to check Tamara's phone. She refused, and he slapped her right there inside the car. This was no longer love. This was power, and she dared to challenge it. Tamara started to feel afraid, but she didn't tell anyone. Maybe she thought, "I'm strong, I can handle it." Maybe she wanted to protect her daughters from the truth. Or maybe she simply couldn't imagine that the man who once shared her bed for 14 years would be the one to end her life. On the afternoon of July 6th, Tamara sat in her car with Aubrey, the ex-husband with whom she had once shared both her youth and her dreams. He asked to check her phone. It wasn't the first time. But this time, Tamara didn't back down. She looked him straight in the eyes and said firmly, "No." There was no argument. Aubrey raised his hand and punched her in the face. In that moment, the twisted love that had long hidden behind the mask of ownership fully revealed itself. And Tamara knew she was no longer safe. That night, Tamara's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. A barrage of texts from Aubrey, some sweet, others chilling. He said he loved her, that he was sorry, that he couldn't control himself. But then the apologies turned into warnings. One message stood out. "The next time you disrespect me will be the last." Tamara read them, but didn't reply. She was exhausted. After 14 years of jealousy, control, and now violence, she had nothing left to say. She stayed silent. But what she didn't know was this. Her silence had lit the fuse of a blood-soaked plan inside the chaotic mind of a man who couldn't handle being left behind. Aubrey didn't sleep. He paced around the room like a caged animal, cornered and frantic. In his head there were no voices of reason, only the echo of humiliation, the haunting thought that this woman had dared to walk away from him. He couldn't accept it. In Aubrey's twisted mind, Tamara had no right to live freely without his permission. And that's when he made his decision. If he couldn't have her, he would destroy her. Aubrey began to gather his tools. Not clothes, but a sharp knife, a hammer, a metal bar, a length of rope, a pair of gloves. Each item a piece of a carefully crafted plan. No spontaneity, no impulse. Before leaving, he set an alarm for 3:30 a.m., a time he believed Tamara would be sound asleep, vulnerable and alone. No one would be there to save her. Meanwhile, Tamara tried to carry on as usual. She returned home with a colleague after a night shift. She didn't tell anyone about the punch. She didn't mention the messages. She didn't call the police. Maybe she thought she still had control. Maybe she wanted to protect her daughters. Maybe she hadn't yet seen the full shadow looming over her life. That night, Tamara went to bed, unaware that her exhausted husband had already broken into her home. He hid downstairs, holding his breath, waiting for the alarm to ring. 3:30 a.m. No more promises. No more apologies. Only the man who had turned love into hate. 3:30 a.m. A dark house. A man awakens, not for a new day, but for a scheduled act of murder. The alarm rings, not to greet the sunrise, but to begin a crime. Aubrey opens his eyes. He isn't panicked. He doesn't tremble. Everything has been prepared. A knife, a metal bar, a hammer, rope, and a plan with no turning back. He walks slowly up the stairs. Each step sinks into the thick, suffocating darkness, just like the thoughts swirling in his mind. Tamara is still asleep. She has no idea that the nightmare approaching comes from the very man who once vowed to love her forever. She returned home just hours ago after a long day at work, believing she had escaped him at last. On her small bed, Tamara curled under the covers in peace, unaware that it would be her last sleep. The bedroom door creaks open. No words, no warning signs. Aubrey raises the metal bar and strikes it down on Tamara. The sound of metal crashing into flesh. A scream that cuts through the night. She jolts awake and fights back. Survival instinct kicks in, not just for herself, but for Tia and Mia. Her two daughters asleep just one room away. She fights with every ounce of strength she has, but he's stronger, he's more ruthless, and he's ready to kill. Defensive wounds cover Tamara's body, evidence of her final struggle. But the mother's body grows weaker. Blood spills. Her breath quickens. Her vision begins to fade. Aubrey stands over her, panting, sweat soaking through his shirt. He thinks, "She's dead." He turns away, walks down the stairs, his hands trembling, stained with blood. But then a faint voice echoes from the darkened room behind him. "Help me." That moment, Tamara's last flicker of hope, would also be the reason she lost her life. He stops, heavy breathing, a blank stare, no hesitation, no second thoughts. He turns back, grabs the knife, and stabs. 7 times. 7. Plunges through flesh, tearing into her organs, ending all resistance. Tamara lies there, eyes wide open, her final breath gone. A mother, a woman, a warrior, now reduced to a cold body, just one wooden door away from her sleeping daughters. When Tamara's colleague awoke to strange noises and saw Aubrey leaving the house, she immediately called 999. Police arrived soon after. Tamara was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. But it was too late. Too much blood lost. Her body couldn't survive. Tamara Padi, 43 years old, was pronounced dead at the hospital. Hours later, Aubrey called the police himself, his voice calm, as if he had just finished something necessary. "I'm sorry for what I did, but she deserved it." At the Manchester Crown Court, England, on September 27, 2021, justice finally spoke. Aubrey Padi, 46 years old, stood trial for first-degree murder. There was no denial, no excuses. He confessed to everything. But what silenced the entire courtroom was not the crime itself. It was his attitude. "I'm sorry for what I did, but she deserved it." That was not remorse. It was a chilling death sentence for compassion. The prosecutor described it as a calculated, cold-blooded and inhumane crime. He didn't kill in a moment of rage. He prepared the weapons, timed the attack, snuck into the house, hid in the dark, and brutally assaulted his ex-wife, while their 2 daughters were sleeping just a door away. Presiding Judge Elizabeth Nichols could not hide her anger as she handed down the sentence. "You didn't just murder the mother of your children. You destroyed the image of a father in their eyes. Not by death, but through ultimate betrayal. You stripped them of love and trust, things every child deserves." The courtroom turned heavy with emotion when Tamara's eldest daughter, Tia, 15 years old, stood to deliver her victim impact statement. Her hands trembled as she held a small piece of paper, reading words no child should ever have to write. "I didn't just lose my mom. I lost my best friend. Every morning I still hope she's in the kitchen, still wish this was just a nightmare. But she's gone. And Dad, the person I once trusted, is the reason why." Aubrey was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 23 years without parole, before eligibility for review, which means, if he fails to show signs of rehabilitation, he may die behind bars. The court made it clear there was no evidence of mental illness, no sudden outburst of rage, no mitigating circumstances. This was a crime, planned, executed, and completed with chilling clarity. Tamara Padi, a mother, a leader, a woman who built her career and family with her own hands, is no longer here. But her voice has not faded into silence. It still echoes in her daughter's tears, in the memories of those who loved her, and in every sentence handed down to men who believe that love means possession, control, and destruction. Love does not kill. Only control disguised as love ever does. This was not simply a case of a jealous rage or a tragic murder. This is a wake-up call for all of us. a glimpse into the dark side of relationships that seem perfect on the outside, where love is distorted into ownership and where a victim's silence becomes a shield for their abuser. Tamara didn't die because of one stab wound. She began to die the moment she was first controlled. With every monitored phone call, every doubt cast on her intentions, every time she had to explain why she was late. She died slowly, through the erosion of her identity, the sacrifices she made for the sake of peace, and the illusion that if I just stay quiet, it'll all get better. And the tragedy is she wasn't alone. Many people, maybe you, or someone you love, or someone watching this video right now, are living in relationships that are toxic without bruises, without visible scars, without proof strong enough to be heard. If you feel suffocated by the very love that's supposed to set you free, if you need permission to be yourself, if you are being threatened, controlled, tracked, or isolated, that's not love. That's emotional abuse, that's psychological violence, and in too many cases, that's the beginning of something far worse. The law protects you. Society needs to hear you. And you have the right to speak up. Tamara is no longer here to tell her story, but we, those who remain, have a responsibility to speak on her behalf, not just to remember her, but to ensure that no more Tamaras fall silent in the face of unchecked control and hidden violence. Because no one, not a wife, not a mother, not a partner, should ever die simply because they chose freedom. Remember the name Tamara Padi, not just as a victim but as a reminder that real love does not control. It does not hurt, and it absolutely does not kill. If a relationship makes you afraid to speak up, then it's no longer love. If you have to abandon yourself just to stay, then it's time to walk away. Please share this story, not only to remember tomorrow, but to protect someone else, maybe even yourself or someone you love, because silence should never be the only option. Thank you for listening. If you found this video meaningful, please like, subscribe, and help us spread this message, so that no more Tamaras have to leave this world in silence.